I, I went to high school with a group of guys, and one guy by the name of Gary Forti. I knew of him through mutual friends. Had a little interaction with him. He pretty much didn't so much hang out with me as he did kind of with my clique, I guess, of friends, if you could call it a clique. And as high school goes by and sort of drifts off into the past, you lose touch with a lot of people. Ironically, as you pop into life, and after a huge amount of time does go by, around 10 years or so, the strangest people fall back into your lives. And Gary was no exception. The actual story of the first time I've seen him since high school is actually a story unto itself. And maybe some other time I'll tell you. It's quite amusing. But after that time, when we met the first time, he gave me his phone number, and we called, we talked, and it was great, this, that, the other thing. And then I went through my divorce, and my wife was leaving me, and that was a very tough period in my life. For the first time in my life, I came this close to, wiping myself out. I could even point to a day. And one day, when I came home, living at home, I'd gone to Ames to get something, which now just sort of escapes me, and I bumped into Gary. We got to talking. And a little history on Gary: he did 7 years in prison for coming home and finding his wife in bed with another man, and he damn near killed him with a piece of lead pipe or something like that. And we got to talking, and he was really just my backbone and my strength through the ordeal with my wife. I mean, he to this day loves his wife, or loved her, and he said he never would stop loving her, but he knew it wasn't right. And even now, she wanted to come back to him, but he knew it wasn't right. And he said he went through it. He said that judge knew if he would have given me 6 months, I would have gotten back and killed her. That's why he gave me 7 years. And he had not a single regret. This guy was tough. He said, I was in jail. He said, I'd lay on that floor, man. I'd just go crazy. And he was tough. But then he said, no, I didn't read a damn book, man. All I did was get stoned and whatnot. He said, when I was in jail, man, I read like 500 books. Philosophy, psychology, theology, you name it. He read it, and he lift weights. Man, the guy was a wee guy. He wasn't even as smaller than me, man. But you could see he just built himself up from working. But he was a small guy. And he said, Noel, man, I've been out of jail for 3 years. He goes, and he got a job working at the steel plant. And, he goes, I bought a house. He goes, some weeks I don't even have a quarter to last me to the rest of the week. But, and I'll do it. I'm going to do it. And I talked to him, and he'd say, ease up on the lifting or this or that, and he would guide me. I remember saying, he said, I said, well, I'm taking Zoloft, and he just looked at me and says, you don't need that shit. You don't need that. You could do it without it. And I tried. I couldn't, man. But he was tough. God, he was tough. He was strong, positive. And we'd talk from time to time, and he showed up and saw me play one time, and he always invite me. He only lived 10 miles away from me. In Derby, I lived in Angola. He'd invite me over for a beer. It's just circumstances never presented themselves. And then about a year ago, the ex-wife, she was killed in a car accident. And she had 3 children, his daughter with her, and then a middle child, and then a baby, an infant. And I don't think the daughter was in the car, but the middle child and the wife were killed, and the baby survived. And the judge granted him custody of the baby. He gave it to him, and even the other father had a petition for custody. And even though he really, life changed for him, and even though, he was truly saddened to see his wife get killed. If the bitch I had a kid with got hit by a bus, man, I would petition the president for a national holiday. But even though his life got so much better after she passed away, in the sense that he received sole custody of his child, he received social services to help him raise the child. I mean, I remember calling him and saying, man, things happen for a reason, guy. And he was truly remorseful that she was killed, even though his life had changed for the better, And I remember he had a benefit. I couldn't make it, but I sent him a check for $20 or something like that, and he called me and thanked me, thanks for the money. And we would talk, and life was good. And I hadn't kept contact with him, and he went right back to work. He got a great job at the highway department, and which is a great government job. And to come against those odds, man, he survived, and he affected people. He helped me, and he learned, and he was strong, man. And I remember I couldn't have done it without him. Last Thursday, he was driving down Route 5 on his motorcycle, and a 22-year-old kid pulled out from a side street right in front of him. He didn't see it. There were no skid marks. He was mercy flighted, but died by the time they reached ECMC of massive head trauma. I had a friend that called me, another mutual friend of ours, and I've had many deaths in my life. And you always go, why does this happen? Or you go through the usual banalities, this is happen. Everything happens for a reason, yada, yada, yada. But far be it from me to question God's better judgment, but where do you get off doing this? Man, this is a disciple, man. This is a guy that's found it, man. This is what you preached for. This is what you died for. Here's a guy that got it, that believed it, and most importantly, helped others achieve that. Where do you get off killing him when he was on his way up? And I didn't realize that he had affected so many people until I went to the first day of the wake yesterday. And man, there were lines around the block. Man, that's how many people knew him, knew of him, cared about him, and loved him. I was just talking to Poultry, and I said, the same thing. I said, why? What possessed God to do this? Poultry sort of said very matter-of-factly, maybe his job was done. Maybe he's on to bigger and better things. Well, maybe so. Gary, thanks, man. You're there when I needed you the most. And, man, you were the strongest son of a bitch I ever met in my life. And I promise I won't let you die.